The work of navigating officers goes on winter and summer, day and night, in calm weather and in storm. This applies equally whether engaged in passage planning, taking the watch, or entering or leaving confined waters under pilotage. It is critical work, as over 80% of insured losses due to collision, grounding and contact damage are said to arise from human error. This program examines the work of navigating officers in the context of passage planning. No safe and successful industry can be run without planning. It's an essential component of any thriving economic activity. There is no industry in which planning is more important than shipping. For a ship underway, a passage plan is essential, both for economic reasons and for safety reasons.
Are you using the chart table? I have passage to plan. No, you can go ahead. Thank you.
A good passage plan will reduce accidents and improve safety. The information it gives frees the watchkeeping officer from frequently consulting reference books and tables. It will ensure that the officer is fully aware of the master's requirements. The plan provides the basis for a safe and successful voyage. It must cover the entire passage, from berth to berth. It must be completed well before departure and must be approved by the master. Planning a voyage properly takes time. The first step is to check that all the necessary charts and publications are available, and no change has taken place to the scheduled destination. Next, there must be a brief discussion with the master, for he will be fully aware of the commercial requirements of the passage and of any last-minute changes to scheduled destinations. The master's experience will enable him to suggest a route, perhaps pointing out potential hazards.
This is the PowerPoint we'll be using. And also mark up the chart 2 hours earlier. We have to call the pilots and confirm. And give me a call when they
The next stage is to collect all the information that will be required. Suitable charts of as large a scale as needed, the appropriate pilot books, IMO routing charts and ocean passage planning manuals, port information for the start and end of the passage. Other essentials are tide tables, the list of lights, radio signals information and weather information. Further items required include any relevant notices to mariners and navigational warnings, as well as the ship's characteristics, including the draft and the maneuvering data. There may be additional information, such as local charts on board. Another useful element is experience. The port or passage may be well known to one or more of the officers. Start with a clear chart. Check to ensure that the charts have been updated with the latest corrections. A small notebook is essential to record key information about the passage, such as alter course positions. However it is done, all the deck officers must be able to understand the plan. You must always be consistent. The plan must be clear and the notes easy to read. The objective is for the plan to help the watchkeepers, not to give them an additional problem in deciphering it. The first thing marked on the chart are the no-go areas, land, shoals, wrecks, and so on. Then, mark off all areas where your draft is more than the depth on the chart. The approach to many ports involves passages where tidal calculations are crucial. Where possible, don't rely on the height of the tide. Let it be a safety bonus. The track is then drawn. In critical areas, the margins of safety need to be marked on both sides of the track. How large they should be will depend on the ship's size and the actual area, as well as your personal preference. Perhaps your company or your captain has a policy of how far off danger you should go. The planned track should always be plotted to clear hazards at a safe distance. Always prepare for the unexpected. What would happen if there was an engine failure at the critical moment in the passage? All the essential elements of the plan are listed in the notebook, which is intended to amplify and support the track on the chart. Items in the notebook should include the safe speed, positions where changes in machinery status are needed, manpower requirements, course alteration positions, points where reports to shore stations are required, minimum depth clearances where critical, and plans for reaching safe water in an emergency. The tidal stream must be marked in. If the time of the voyage changes, the track may stay the same, but some data, such as the tidal information, will need to be changed. A means of verifying the position of all changes in course must be marked on the chart. At night, lights can provide a useful source of fixes and bearing information. All relevant navigation information should be indicated on the chart as part of the plan. There is often not the time to look them up while underway. On large-scale charts, wheelover bearings should be found that are parallel to the new course. That way, even if the ship is to the left or right of the intended track, she will come around onto the correct course. It is important in planning a passage to specify how the position of the ship should be fixed and how often. Most watchkeeping officers will have developed their own rule of thumb for timings. However, for an effective and reliable plan, this is inadequate. Ideally, the time between fixes must be so that it's impossible for the ship to get into danger between fixes. Well offshore, this might mean once every few hours. Closer inshore, the position of the ship is more critical and fixes must be more frequent. It's essential for the ship's position to be ascertained by cross-checking the results of different fixing methods. Radar and visual fixing both have their advantages and disadvantages. Knowing when to use which as primary or secondary fixing methods is part of a watchkeeper's skill. The chart should be marked with a useful number of visual and radar conspicuous objects. These can be derived from the chart itself, the pilot books, or from the mariner's personal experience. It's important to put in only a reasonable number of these points. Don't be overzealous, covering the chart with dozens of radar conspicuous objects that the officer will not have time to use. What is needed is the right number, keeping in mind the closeness to land and the speed of the ship. The ship's speed is another crucial aspect of passage planning that must not be left to chance. It is vital to plan the time of arrival. How does it fit in with the tides, the pilot services, or the berth availability? The speeds and waypoint ETAs need to be marked on the chart and in the passage planning notebook. Landfalls also need to be clearly marked. One objective of the passage plan is to help the watch-keeping officer in using his time. The notebook can be used to detail instructions that would involve writing on large areas of the chart. The chart and the notebook are both essential elements of the passage plan. A very powerful method of monitoring the ship's track during a coastal passage is parallel indexing. Essentially, this consists of drawing the track of a radar conspicuous point on a relative motion radar display. The cross-index range of the track is the distance the ship needs to keep off the point. This plot enables a constant check of the ship's track to be kept. Fixes still need to be taken even when parallel indexing is taking place. In poor visibility, parallel indexing is invaluable. For watchkeepers to be familiar with this technique, they must practice it in conditions of good visibility. The passage must be planned berth to berth, even for passages where the ship will be navigated by a pilot. The passage plan will need to be discussed with the pilot when he comes on board. In this way, both the pilot and the bridge team will be aware of the intended passage. The bridge team will then be able to monitor the ship's progress effectively. When the ship is headed into an area of restricted navigation, such as inside a harbour, the plan should include an abort point. This is the last moment that the ship can turn back, whatever the reason for such a maneuver. As the ship runs up to this point, all arrangements, such as berth and tug availability, must be confirmed with the appropriate authorities. Once the navigating officer is satisfied with the plan, it needs to be checked and approved by the master.
Sir, second officer speaking. I have the passage plan ready. Could you please come up on the bridge? Thank you.
The principle of double-checking the plan must be part of the bridge routine. The master may be able to suggest improvements based on his greater experience.
This is the deep draft pilot boarding ground. Right front it is waypoint alpha. We are arriving at 1800 hours.
As the plan will be made some time ahead of the voyage, the departure time may change. This may not affect the track, but will affect tides and passage times. The plan will need to be updated when departure time is known. The overall objective of the plan must be to give the watchkeeping officer a plan to follow and sufficient information to enable him to do that easily. The plan will also provide a backup store of facts, so that if things do go wrong, there will be information on the chart to help the watchkeeping officer. Overall, it is essential that there is a complete berth-to-berth passage plan for every voyage. The passage plan should be marked on the chart with supplementary notes in a notebook. The chart should have, in addition to the track, useful information, including safety margins, clearing bearings, wheelover positions, and tidal streams. The plan must be approved by the master in good time. The plan must be updated as required. A good passage plan will provide the information the watchkeeper needs. It is the basis of a safe and efficient passage. Don't let your ship leave the berth without one. Further information and advice on the subject of passage planning can be found in the Nautical Institute's publication, Bridge Team Management.